Welcome to Discograffiti, the podcast that gives Gen X music maniacs a chance to smell like teen spirit again by connecting with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebro, and with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. In this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the Needle Drop's Anthony Fantano, along with co-host Joe Kennedy. This interview's one for all you super duper busy motherfuckers because this week's a shorty. And so without further ado, away we go then with Anthony Fantano Origin Story. I'm curious. We're here with Anthony Fantano from the Needle Drop, which is taking the 21st century by storm, music review-wise. So, I know Jello Biafra was a huge influence on you, right?
Yeah.
So, was it one of the Dead Kennedys records that set you off on your lifelong adventure, or what was?
Yeah, I mean, really just like a friend of mine in high school turning me on to punk music, and they were one of the bands that that I was kind of introduced to, and. Yeah, I mean, Dead Kennedys for me was really an aha moment in terms of a lot of things, like the songwriting, the political topics in the songs, how irreverent they were with a lot of the topics they approached, Jello Biafra's weird ass fucking vibrato, and really like which you didn't hear on a lot of punk records, especially hardcore records at the time, like the incredible musicianship. Right. Of everybody in the band, like East Bay Ray, amazing surf guitar player. Klaus Fluoride could walk a bass like any jazz rock player, and obviously like incredible drumming as well.
As a musician yourself, this is the well that you're mainly pulling from?
No, I mean, I would say no, probably not. But I would say like at a certain point in time, yes. Like I was when I was a teen, I was like learning a lot of my first bass lines by ear from just like replaying songs off of Plastic Surgery Disasters over and over, and Fresh Fruit. So yeah, I mean, at a certain point in time, I did learn like quite a few of those bass lines completely just on my own, knowing very little about any kind of like music theory or what chord anything was in. I was just kind of doing it all by ear.
When we do this show, we're listening to all this stuff chronologically in a row, and it's so much listening. I'm sure you're familiar with this experience. I'm sure you have so much music to listen to all the time for your show. What are some records you go to a lot, like that, like aren't your like for work records? What are the kind of like some of your standbys? Like what kind of stuff are you usually listening to? I'm sure it's an eclectic mix, but what are a few?
Trying to think of like what was the last album I listened to like all the way through just for pleasure. Thankfully I do just run across a lot of things that I'm reviewing that I'm just like listening to for pleasure after I'm done with the review. I've been listening to a lot of tracks off the new Orville Peck record, like that.
I hear that's amazing, actually.
Yeah, I mean there's some good highlights on it. It's very showy.
I hear the sound of it
little.
Is very interesting.
It's I would actually say the sound of it is maybe one of the least interesting things about it. I would contend with that because like it's a very glammy, reverb heavy, showy kind of country record, and I prefer country to have a bit more twang to it and grit. But the thing is, the vocal performances in some of the songs are so good. I would say like in terms of a record that I was listening to just casually. Probably the Postal Service's Give Up. I was listening to that casually.
What's the greatest box set ever released?
The greatest box set?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I do really like I do have the vinyl box set of the final LCD Sound System concert. I do like that one a lot. Oh, that's cool.
How many CDs is that one?
It's I think it's like 5 vinyl records all together. I like that one a lot. I think that's a great recording and performance.
So beyond music, what's your relationship like? I mean, you've been doing the show for a long time. How many years has it been?
The YouTube show has been around since like 2009. Before that, the Needle Drop started as a podcast and continued till about 2012. And it was a show that aired on NPR stations as well. But then, the YouTube channel just kind of demanded more and more of my attention. So I just began to focus on that, from 2013 on.
Was it a slow burn or all of a sudden like, boom, I mean, you shot out of a cannon? What was the ascent?
I mean, like? I would say I kind of toiled for a few years, just like doing the podcast and blogging and not really knowing like how, like, not only was I not seeing the growth and the engagement that I wanted, but like I was thinking, like, even if I did get that, how the heck would I even monetize this?
As a kid, are you just ingesting all the music criticism you can, or does that not even hold an essential?
Hell no. Are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. Like, as a kid, I was a 90s kid that got most of my music from the radio and MTV, and in so many ways my musical world opened when I got my first little Sony boombox, and
nice.
Was able to play tapes in it, and also just record tapes off the radio of songs that I thought were really good.
I'm picturing Radio Raheem from Do the Right Thing right now. It's probably not the right image.
Like a way less cool version of that on like a cul-de-sac. A heavy set kid on a cul-de-sac,
right?
In Connecticut, yes. A heavy set kid on a cul-de-sac in Connecticut. And
we all got to start somewhere.
Exactly. I was like listening to just a lot of the stuff that was popular at the time, just like Rage Against the Machine, Green Day, TLC, Boyz II Men, The Offspring, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I had some hip hop tapes as well. I just kind of like, it was just like a mix of everything that I was hearing on the radio.
What was the record that like kind of turned the key for you? Not that all that isn't good music, but kind of more sophisticated.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like when that was kind of like my taste when I was a kid, just whatever was kind of coming to me through MTV and the radio. And when I got older and I kind of graduated into high school, I sort of I fell in with the metal crowd at school.
Me too.
And then I was just like kind of listening to whatever they listened to, which like at the time was like industrial metal.
Yeah, it's a weird in between phase for metal.
Right. Exactly. And then, I sort of got introduced to punk music from there. And then from punk kind of went backwards and thought like, oh, this is like a super underground version of this genre of music that I like. And maybe that's the case for other, genres of music. So of course, like then I'm kind of going back and I'm like, reworking or just like kind of dialing back into all of these hip hop groups from the 80s and, different artists and electronic music as well that are sort of just like more obscure, and just being willing to listen to anything that I could buy with money from my part-time job that I was working at the time.
Was it not at a pizza place?
Yeah, that was at a pizza place, and this was also before what many people would call in the 2000s the vinyl boom.
Right.
So it's like records were dirt fucking cheap.
Yeah.
At the time, before I graduated high school, I could buy a new vinyl of a new album for cheaper than I could buy a CD. So I was like buying new records. I was buying
stuff you could get for nothing. You could get like 99 cents.
Exactly.
Regularly.
I was buying, obviously not mint condition, but playable with no scratches, copies of Prince records for like $2.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if I could do the time machine thing, that'd be the first thing I'd do is just go record shopping.
Yeah, go back there. Like I think I got as a high schooler a copy of the White Album, no scratches, with all the color photos of each member of the band, totally intact for 10.
Yeah,
like
great.
you're just like paying absolutely nothing for great records, and like I was making under the table like $10-12 an hour at my pizza job, for just like flipping pies and just like, just work in the oven. So it's like I could go on the weekend and just buy whatever. I could buy Cramps records. I could buy, Black Flag records. I could just buy whatever the hell I wanted.
Records stayed cheap until like, I don't know, more like the teens or something. Because I remember being out on tour a lot, and just that's like my hobby on tour. Just like coming home with like, bags and bags of records.
Yeah, by the way, Joe has a tremendous amount of experience as a working musician. He's been on, I believe, at latest count, every single late night talk show.
Yeah, done some stuff.
Cool. Yeah, we can't toot his own horn.
I'm not a good horn tooter.
Right.
It's a flex.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not, yeah.
So at what point? I'm curious. You're mounting your show. At what point in the process do you realize like, holy shit, I could be doing just this, and that's it?
Like YouTube?
Was there a moment where you're like, this is coming into sharp focus, and it's everything is falling into place? Was there that aha moment for you?
I would say my first I guess there were a couple early on aha moments. Like obviously the transition to YouTube initially, because I was just like, this blogging and podcasting thing isn't working. Let me just try talking about records on YouTube just to see like if it does something. And I guess my first aha moment with that was like when maybe I had netted my first 1,000 subscribers.
How long
maybe not even that.
How long did that take?
maybe a year.
Okay.
At the time, like not only because like,
are you aggressive? Are you aggressively courting these people?
I was uploading maybe like once every week or 2 weeks at the time.
Okay.
And I was doing record reviews, but I was kind of a mix of things. I didn't really know what direction to go in because at the time, like there weren't a whole ton of, there weren't other people reviewing records on YouTube outside of a couple that were also really obscure too. There wasn't some huge music review channel that I looked up to that I copied. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, I like the way you use, the facility with which you use your body and body language to describe really how you're feeling about something. It does make use of the medium.
Yeah, no, it gets the point across.
It does.
But yeah, I mean, I would say like my first aha moment was netting the first 1,000 over the course of a year. And, again, that was like way more engagement than I was getting on my other stuff. So I was like, this is going somewhere. Let me keep following it. And then I would say like my next aha moment past that was when I was actually making enough money off of YouTube to move out of my mom's house. So like that was like 2012 or 2011, like late 2011 or so.
So this is how much length of time goes by between the first and the second aha moment? Hey lads and ladies, Dave Gebrow here. I abandoned my career and moved my family 3,000 miles to be able to focus exclusively on Discograffiti. And so if you're like me and enough is just never enough, then please visit patreon.com/Discograffiti and become one of our Patreon soldiers of sound. Discograffiti is an entirely listener-supported show, and it's also intended to be a 3 times a week music deep dive experience. So do us both a favor and consider giving it a shot. Trust me, I'm working hard for the money, so hard for it, honey. There's the main show on Friday, a Monday wildcard episode, which is either a soul-bearing interview with that week's special guest, or an offshoot show like Queasy Listening and Rock Cousteau. And then on Wednesdays, there's the humdinger of them all, Discograffiti's The Private Press with Paul Major. You got nothing to lose. If you don't dig it after a month, you're refunded, no questions asked. Once again, that's patreon.com/Discograffiti.
When I got 1,000 subscribers, that was 2010. That was the start of 2010. And then maybe by the end of 2011, start of 2012, I was like, moving out.
That's great. It must have been an amazing feeling for you to, do that thing where you make something out of nothing and, almost wonder how you even got there. But it's a wonderful thing you did.
Thanks.
Is there anything beyond your incredible show, The Needle Drop, that you want to promote?
Just The Needle Drop and Fantano on YouTube and, The Needle Drop on Twitch as well if you're into live streams.
Oh, cool. I didn't know you did that. I got to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Friday we do a new Music Friday stream where we just like play whatever's out.
Oh, nice. That's a good idea for a show.
All of Anthony's shows, topics, everything, are must-see viewing if you need to keep up with what's going on. And of course you do, because here you are. Thank you so much for joining us on one of the most venerated, amazing bands that ever was. Join us next week when it'll invariably be an incredible episode, no matter how great or awful the band is. It'll be so entertaining. So you want to definitely make sure you're following us, subscribing, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're interested in world domination, just like Madonna circa 1981 or so. We'll see you next time on Discograffiti. In the meantime, stay cool and keep pouring liquid gold into those ear holes.
No, it was a good time. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right, that about does it. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to our graphic designer, Todd Zimmer, my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Anthony Fantano, the Honorable Joe Kennedy, my loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community. I love you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much more. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, I get it. You can email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. But wait just a minute. This is just the entrance to the rabbit hole. Join us as we descend down, down, down on Discograffiti's triple episode, Everything Must Go Triple Podcast Deep Dive. Of course, if you're a Patreon subscriber, then you already know to keep your ears peeled throughout the week, because this Monday brings the Patreon-only wildcard episode, Alan Arkish's Fillmore Feast Part 2, a blow-by-blow account of what a typical night at the Fillmore felt, smelled, and sounded like from the vantage point of a man who experienced it all from almost every conceivable perspective. Usher, light show, pastrami guy, not to mention Wednesday's incredible Patreon-only episode of Discograffiti's The Private Press, the exciting conclusion of Paul Major's top 10 private press albums of all time. This will be the final episode of The Private Press, as Paul launches off into his endless boogie European tour, and we fill those unfillable shoes with our killer new Patreon series, Discograffiti's The Top 10. Thankfully, the Paul Major archives dozens and dozens of incredible podcasts about the private press world will live on forever on our Patreon, forever accessible from the Major tier. Godspeed, and we love you, Paul. Make sure you visit patreon.com/discograffiti and check out the deep dive as a music obsessive's way of life. Every week is a new thematically linked triple episode deep dive trawl. You're going to love it. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, August 4th, we're coming at you with an insane two-parter about the greatest drummer who ever lived, who just happened to kill his mother, and his name is Jim Gordon. Our guest, the venerable rock scribe JOEL SELVIN, author of the forthcoming bio Drums and Demons, The Tragic Journey of Jim Gordon, to be published in February by Diversion Books. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!